Okay, we're on day 2 of the chicken soup. I'll recap what I did yesterday. First, you need your crock pot. Take a whole chicken in the crock pot. Need some chopped celery, chopped carrots. These are small onions, a couple onions of that size. Black pepper, poultry seasoning, bay leaves, very important, 2 or 3 bay leaves. And once you have it all in the pot, pour in a can of the chicken broth, turn it on high. My bay leaves jumped out. And let it go for about 3 hours until the chicken starts to fall apart. Once the chicken is cooked, you'll want to remove it from the pot, leaving the vegetables and the broth in the pot. And it will take a little bit for it to cool. Set the chicken aside, let it cool for just a little bit. Then you can remove the skin, start pulling the chicken off the thighs, removing the fat, the tendons, and any gristle or anything. Discard the bones, the fat, and just keep the meat. Then you'll chop that into small pieces, set that into the refrigerator, and actually pouring some broth over will keep that from drying out. Now we're on to day 2. I've changed to the stock pot. The chicken I've cut up the day before is here with some broth on it to keep it from drying out. You'll notice it's got some fat coagulated on top. If you keep the broth separate, you can just use a spoon to pull that off, or if you happen to have one of these, this is a soup separator, you will pour the broth into this, the fat will come to the top, and when you pour it, the broth comes out here and out the spout, leaving the fat in the separator. I also have the vegetable part. These are the vegetables that were in the bottom of the crock pot, and we're ready to start making soup. I've added the vegetables to the stock pot. I add 8 to 10 cups of water, depending on how big a pot of soup you're making. Turn the heat up and let's get this thing boiling. Okay, so you can see what we've got so far. We've got the vegetables. Carrots are in the bottom here. They're actually in here, but everything is in large chunks. Well cooked though. This is when we bring in the boat motor, otherwise known as an immersion blender. It's called a boat motor because right here on this end, the dangerous end, yep, you have the blender part there. I'm going to puree these vegetables. Not too much. Okay, you notice that it's completely changed the texture of the broth so far. I mentioned 3 soups. This is the time you would decide which one you're going to do. If you're going to add mushrooms, I would brown them in a separate pan now with some butter. If you're making a chicken and rice, wild rice especially, you'll want to prepare the wild rice in a separate pan, separate pot, off to one side, and get it ready before it goes in because it takes an extremely long time to cook. Since I'm making chicken noodle soup, the noodles will absorb much of the moisture, so I'm adding about twice the amount of water we had in the other soups. This is also a good time to put your chicken back in. I would say I'm going to use about half on a batch this size. This is the smallest pot I have in the kitchen, so I can't use a whole chicken in here. Now that everything is heated up again and simmering, this is a good time to go ahead and add your rice if you're making chicken and rice, mushrooms if you're making chicken and mushrooms, or like I'm making, add your noodles. I'm using medium egg noodles. The wide egg noodles swell quite a bit. The medium egg noodles still give it a good homemade look. The noodles are now cooked. The amount of water and the noodles themselves we've added have diluted the flavor a lot of the base we started with. You've added no salt to this point, and the reason is this is a good time to add bouillon cubes to get the flavor where you want it. You can also use a soup base. This is a chicken soup base. A lot of salt and poultry fat, basically. So we have to be sparing on that, but that will put the flavor into it. I like to add Italian seasoning, and white pepper, because white pepper does not sink to the bottom like black pepper does. Okay, that's basically it, unless you want a different texture. If you like your soup thicker, which I do, the noodles haven't thickened it up quite as much as I'd hoped for. You need to keep your heat up, because for this to work, the soup needs to be boiling. Add a tablespoon or two of cornstarch to some cool water and stir that up. Pour it into your soup. Like I said, it has to boil for this to work, and give it just a couple minutes at a full boil, and when you turn it back down, you'll have a nice thick soup. Okay, that's pretty much it. You can see that the cornstarch has done its thing, and it's suspending the herbs and the spices into the sauce here, and it's much thicker than a store-bought soup. Down deep we've got the noodles and the chicken, so you get something good in every bite. One quick note: if you're using rice or noodles to make your soup, don't overcook them. If you plan on canning them, it will get more cooking in the canning process. Thanks for watching.